There's a long way to go on this, and if anyone tries to rush us, I think the committee has to stand firm and look at every angle of this, because, as you say, you're putting a lot of money aside for 32 years' time. And lots of things can go wrong, and lots of things that people think they've legislation even against can go wrong in that time scale. There is an attraction with you put in now, the state pays out again, but I think we have to think deeply on this one. The only one that held up during the crisis was the state pension. No, I'm not talking about going back to only having a flat rate. Obviously people that have the opportunity to invest their income should be incentivized to do that. Yes, absolutely. But the question is, who should do it and on what basis? Is there a logic to pay in and you pay in today and so on, and that's how it's supported? I'd be very interested. I think we have to do a study. I'd suggest, last Friday, that you might mention to the chair that it might be worth our while getting people in from the Nordics and the continent and from the European model, because so many other things we've decided we're European Union members rather than British Commonwealth members, and if we'd move on and away from the common law system and from the old emperor ideas, and we'd look at least, I think we should look at the European model here. Because, there's one thing I learned in departments. Department put out consultation papers, but most times they have an idea fixed from the very beginning of where they're going. Believe you me, I'm a long time out.
I don't think that's unique to the Department of Social Protection.
No, it's certainly very common
across government.
And Europe does the same thing. I used to always say about the CAP reform. They built in 10% that they'd negotiate, and the other 90% was the original document, consultation document was the final document that came at the end.
Well, all I'll say, Deputy, is this, is that, and I want to repeat myself now, we did argue for very significant state control. And I think somebody mentioned the NTMA somewhere along the line here, I think we actually said the NTMA ourselves, right, in our original submission. They have come, in the actual bill that's been proposed, I think they have come more towards the model that we advocated originally. And if through the good work of this committee, they can be persuaded to come 100% towards what we originally advocated, it'll be a job well done.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the debate we needed to have today. And I'm glad you made a clear statement now, because just because they come in with a bill and that they had fixed on a model doesn't mean that the only thing we can do is tinker at the edges. We can look at it as a benitio because we never had it before. So this is a government proposal, but it's not an Oireachtas proposal, and we can say no, go back and reshape the whole model. We don't have to recommend that this goes forward in some, with minor amendments. We can do that's what I'm trying to say. We're only at the very, very beginning of this, and you're here first up. And maybe you're the radical voice at the table too. And again, in fairness to it too, when we were looking at the there's been a lot of very, very, how would I put it, badly informed commentary by the media on keeping the pension age at 66. ICTU were the one group that stood out from that particular report, if I remember right, and said keep it at 66. Now, when you actually examine it, the PRSI difference in cost was absolutely minimal. Both needed state subsidy. Both of the options we were given, and keeping it at 66 was not actually putting up the PRSI contributions that appreciably. And I think we all agree that self-employed contributions are low for the benefits that you get out now when you've got invalidity and so on. So, I don't go along with the presumption that just because you're the only ones that stand out that you're necessarily wrong. I actually often think that the people who are the only ones who stand out or can often be proven in hindsight to be the only ones that were right.
I don't think I'll ask you to comment on that necessarily.
We'll take the compliment.
A very separate. Is there any concluding statement?
Just a quick one. We didn't really touch on the income limit, so it's being proposed that those earning under 20,000, so those earning in and around a full-time minimum wage, would not be automatically included. A bit like the lower age limit. That's very high by international standards. In the UK, it's £10,000 and you're not automatically included. So we're looking at twice as high. And in Australia, it's around $3,500 US. So they nearly put everybody, it's close to, you know, if you, apart from doing maybe a few weeks work over the year, you would be automatically included. So we would say you need to look. But we've talked about a lot of the negatives this morning, but across the water in the UK, they're 10 years further down the road than us. And really the evidence coming from that is hugely impressive. Pension coverage has jumped from 47% before it was auto-enrolment was introduced up to 80% now. And when we look at the lowest paid workers, the workers in hospitality, their coverage has jumped from 5% to 51%. So if we get this right, it could be hugely successful and hugely beneficial to workers, ensuring that they have a decent standard of living in their later years. So there's a lot of reasons to be hopeful as well.
But you don't, let's go back. Yes, we've been asking hard questions, but if you look at post-Brexit British economy, it's much more introverted, so the likelihood is that they're going to invest a much higher percentage of all these funds within the island of Britain than we are. So it is apples and oranges to a point. On that point, another one of the arguments we're saying is, are we going to be sucking money out of the Irish economy that could be used in the Irish economy? We need a lot of infrastructure in this country. Our infrastructure always pays in the long term, always. Look at all the things we built 10, 20 years ago. They look that cheap now. So I think we do need, in this particular island situation, to have a debate on that issue, because, you know, are we actually, there's two things here, obviously, to pay the pension out at the end to get a return, but there's also the fact that if you're moving a mega amount of money, including a very significant contribution to the state offshore, and you mentioned that, you know, pension funds, this was the argument about not burdening the bondholders. Then in the day, nobody knows where the bloody money goes because it gets lost in this network of financial transactions and funds and people pressing buttons on computers. But it does cede the control to the fund managers as opposed to the sovereign, of sovereign money.